Part of why we do the timer, not just to save your time, is to learn to keep the gift of prophecy, especially if you've been carrying it for a long time, into subjection. Like, we need to be able to kind of like, you see Paul exhorting Timothy to stir up his gift, stir up that gift that's within you. You also need to be able to stop your gift. It's not easy, especially when there's so many good things out there. Like the Lord says his thoughts towards us are like the grains of sand on a seashore. We could prophesy over someone for a very long time because the Lord has more good things to say about someone than you and I can ever wrap our brain around. So it's very hard for me to stop that on a dime sometimes, but it is part of strengthening yourself and growing in the prophetic is start on a dime, stop on a dime. Just because it's part of the learning and the growth process. I want to get a few testimonies if somebody really had something that hit their heart. Maybe the Lord uncovered something different about your name. Maybe he spoke to you in a different way than you've ever heard before. Maybe you gave a word in a way you've never given before and you were surprised. Or does anybody want to share anything? Like Rach has got a mic there.
Well, Bruce shared with mine first, and it was about taking first steps. My name is Timothy, by the way, and Timothy stands for honoring God. And he said, I know that about you, but he said, I see that you take first steps in that honoring process, and you think of, and you don't skip those steps. You go towards the first step, which is always honoring God first. So that was really incredible to me. Wes was my second human. And it was really cool because I thought, well, maybe it'll be cool to have a younger perspective, something incredible. He had one word, and it was the color gold. I think it was color, maybe the substance gold, but that's all he had was gold. And what it spoke to me was the purity and the truth of the relationship that I have with Christ. And it was so, so deep. The one word it just hit me like a ton of bricks. It was so, so incredible. Thank you, Wesley. It was so good.
That's awesome. Wesley's a man of deep wisdom.
Yes.
I don't know how to get to you. All right,
I love how, when you get a word from the Lord, it comes with, it's just one thing, but it's multidimensional. When you hear one word, it can create all sorts of things within you.
I'm not allowed to hold the mic. Oh. So what was really cool is I had two people that I didn't know at all. And they're both very new at doing this. They said that right up front. So my name, you all know me as Mickey, but my formal name is Carolyn, and middle name is Michelle. And Carolyn means giver of joy, or song of joy and happiness. And Michelle is godly woman, or in the likeness of God. So the first, I don't know if I should name names, but Miss Grace, she said, the Christmas play just gave a lot of joy, and she sees me as a person that is able to give a lot of joy. And then Sarah, she said, there's that the God in me is makes anyone feel comfortable, and they can talk to me about anything. And she could just really sense that. So here's the thing that really blessed me in that is, oftentimes the enemy fights you in your giftings and your callings. So this past month has been just awful with depression and the feeling that I don't fit in, I don't belong, I'm too much of a wackadoodle nut. And they were just so trepidatious about saying anything, but yet it brought to mind immediately, of course this is why I've been struggling and what I've been struggling. Because that's what I was created to be. So that's what the enemy's going to really try to hit hard and attack.
I love that so much. We forget that. We have to war with what their names mean, right? There's a reason why we're called what we're called. And you're right. The enemy will do whatever it takes to kind of shut that. And we don't recognize it. I can recognize it for other people, but we don't always recognize it for ourselves. Anybody else? We'll do one more before we move on, because we don't want you to get too comfortable in your seat. It's cold in here. We're going to keep moving. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So my name's John Michael, actually, and John is friend of God, and Michael it's a rhetorical question, who is like God? Mm-hmm. And Dominic said, wow, that's strong. That's just a really close relationship. I forget the words he said, actually, but what I got was, well, so I struggle with, am I really hearing from God? Am I just making this stuff up? I don't know if I do. That whole thing. And something in what he said, it just kind of triggered inside of me like, well, yeah, you do. You hear from God. So it wasn't even exactly what he said, but I was hearing something.
I love that, though, because the word brought something to life inside of you. Like, I think we worry so much about what we're saying, that we're hearing from the Father, and it's like his life is on it. You just you just partner with him, and he'll bring whatever he wants through it. And I love that, like when you talk about you struggle to hear from the Lord, or you're not sure, because it's sort of like learning. It's like learning a new craft, and you're doing it with somebody who's been around a long time, and they'll be like, yes, that's it. No, you got it. That's the sweet spot. And it's like the Lord's doing that for you. Like, yes, you do. Yes, you do. And you're finding that inner muscle. You're finding that muscle memory. You're creating muscle memory. Like you've all heard me talk about before on a Sunday morning, if you've ever been here, which is embarrassing to talk about, but I embarrass myself publicly all the time for your sake. So, I had to have physical therapy done, and some of the things they were talking about that was wrong with my leg was actually attributed to the fact that my muscles in my backside. And I was like, what? Do I have to build up the muscle in my backside to stop this in my leg from being screwed up? And he's like, oh, yeah. Yeah, but we're not going to build your muscles up because we have to wake them up. There's no muscle to build. So I feel like that's what we do when we get together. He's like, we're going to get things that will wake up your muscle, and then you build your muscle. So like you're found your connection and your voice with the Lord, and you're strengthening it, and now you're building it, I love that. It's amazing. There's a fun story with this activation that I really didn't share with you, but I will. I love when the Lord takes a meaning that is negative, like we talked about some of those biblical meanings, and he flips the coin. One of the things Dano talked about when he spoke here, and when I've heard him talk many times, is about a girl whose name was Mara, and her name means bitter, and she hated anything that had to do with names. She didn't want, little girls always like to have keychains and all this stuff and all the little backpacks and all that. And she's like, no, I don't want a bookmark with my name on it. It means bitter. Like it just reinforces. And she adopted the meaning of her name. You could see it. Like she was a little more downcast. She didn't wear any color. I shouldn't talk about that because I live in gray and black. But anyway, she just really wasn't. Yeah. So. And he spoke to her and he said, why aren't you participating? She said, I hate my name and I don't want to do it. There's nothing good you can say. And the Lord started to unpack for him that Mara, he said, yeah, Mara does mean bitter, but it's speaking about the bitter waters. And he's like, you're the place where bitterness becomes sweet. You're the place the Lord has uniquely equipped you to take situations and people who are suffering from bitterness and bring them to life and deliver sweetness to them and break the yoke of bondage of bitterness from their lives. And he's like, you know what was amazing? I did life with her for a long time. Her entire outside of who she was started to line up with the inside of the destiny who she was called to. She wasn't introverted. She wasn't hiding anymore. You saw an expression come out of her. Even what she wore, what she did, just began to change because of who she believed that she was. So I think if you can prophesy over somebody's name, it's powerful. You take it outside these four walls, it's powerful. Anybody who's got a name tag on is a target. Super easy way to prophesy. And you don't even have to tell them you're doing it from the meaning of your name. You just speak into their destiny and they'll come alive. Yeah, so we're going to do another activation with a name, if I can find it, because I shut all my tabs like a ding-dong. All right. We're going to do a name association activation. So, in the Bible, we see they use parables. Jesus is constantly speaking in parables and symbols and metaphors. We hear like the kingdom heaven is like, Jesus created a bridge all the time through revelation and of association. Like he spoke to people what they knew about. He spoke to fishermen about fish. He spoke to farmers about farming. He could have told them about the quantum physics of how the universe was created, but he did not, because he was trying to speak to them through associations that they could understand that would unpack the revelation that he had for them. So Associative language is pretty much just symbols and parables. I think it's interesting that the Hebrew language, the language God spoke through first, Hebrew, Aramaic, has lots and lots of meanings and depth. I think we learned, was anybody here when Brian Simmons was here? Yeah, and he just helps us see even clearer how the Lord associates many words with other words, that there's so much depth sometimes in the word. We take things at face value because, we're Western culture. We're very linear thinking. We like our boxes. And the Hebrew and Aramaic language was very fluid, flowing. It was meant to hit your heart before it hit your head. And most of us think it hits our head and we hope it gets down to our heart. But God he's a little backwards with that sometimes. Some of the Hebraic words that we see in Scripture can have 6 different meanings and connotations. And when you really take time to look at it, somebody had to choose one, right? But you look at if you look at Genesis where he's talking about breathing the breath of life into Adam, that breathing life is also the same word for kiss. So the first touch of breathing life into Adam was a kiss from God. The depth of that when you really understand the language and what he's trying to say. So we're going to use associative language today to prophesy over each other. It's just another form of seeing in the Spirit. I would tell you one of the biggest things to remember when you're giving an associative word, which honestly, the things that we're doing right here are recipes. We're not creating recipes when we're giving them out in the world, but we're isolating some things to recognize them so that when they come up in us and when they stir things up in us, we won't second guess them away. We'll recognize them as the Lord because we worked at it through intentionality. Because what you do with intentionality, you will do when you're out in the world and you don't even know it. Right? Does that make sense? It's sort of practice with Jesus. So don't assume away any associations. Have you ever met somebody and thought, why does this person remind me of my aunt so-and-so? They don't look like him. They don't sound like him. They don't even, maybe they do. But sometimes they don't. You're trying to figure out the association. A lot of times that's the Lord putting his finger on something for you. What are you trying to tell me about them, Lord? What's amazing? I dare you. You ask the Lord what's amazing about somebody, and he just won't shut up. He'll just keep unpacking it. Whatever it is, if you struggle with the way someone looks, the way someone sounds, the way someone's lifestyle is, all you got to do is ask the Lord, hey, who are they? Tell me who they are. You will never struggle over what your eyes and your heart and the information of your head is giving you because you only see them now through the Father's image. So sometimes it's the association of a family friend, could be a member, could be the way they look, could be similar spirit, personality, gifting, anointing. The Lord might associate this person for you with a biblical character, could be a political character. For me, I have had multiple people give me words, not what I call them words, just say, you're going to chuckle because it's really weird. I have multiple people in a season of my life stop me and go, do you know, you remind me of Lady Gaga. I don't own anything pointy in my wardrobe. I don't know what your problem is. I don't see that. And I really just tucked it away. That is very, very strange. And when I was doing my class, we had to, one of the activations we sort of took this association activation and stretched it out. And one of the things was hey, tell somebody what you've been associated with and let them prophesy for that. And I'm oh, this is a zinger. Here you go. I'll throw that one out. And she nailed it on the head. She said, you know what? She doesn't see the world the way anybody else does. She sees it from a totally different angle. It gives her a unique perception on the world that's actually given her a voice that nobody else had. I'm curious. Okay. And I, the little worker man back there, the bald guy back in the corner, Chris, my husband, the big guy, he has had over decades of his life. It's super funny because every time they start to give it, they don't know why we're laughing. Multiple places all over the world have said to him, when we get a prophetic word, Morpheus. And I'm like, Morpheus is a tall black man. Chris is a short, little white guy. They are both bald. They are bald. I will give them that. And there's a slight gap. But outside of that, I don't see the, but you know what Morpheus does? He offers the red pill and the blue pill. You want to live like this? You want to see the truth? It's up to you. You can do what you want. He's a leader. He's fearless. He brings revelation, leads others to the truth, understanding of the kingdom, all through association. I was supposed to have Dee lead the first demonstration for you, and I blew it out of the water, and Rachel, out of her graciousness, didn't tell me I was fudging. So she did prepare for this one tonight. Do you want to lead the association, or I was going to have her demonstrate what it looks like to give an associative word. Do you want to do that? Or we could, you know what we should do? We should have you do it and Dee do it. Because she's too amazing. And everybody wants a word from Dee. Your life is so much better when you get a word from Dee. You know what I have in my, come do that, Dee. I have in my cabinet at home, this is one of my greatest treasures, my last 2 children. While I was carrying them, Dee spoke prophetically over them every month they were in the womb and wrote and journaled that for me. It's like one of my most precious treasures, I know I'm throwing you on the spot. You don't care, do you? Mm-hmm. You don't care, do you? We're stretching everyone tonight. Woo! Everyone gets stretched.
That's what we do, right? We figure it out.
We figure it out. Oh, this is perfect. Yes, because we're just gonna throw it all out on the table. Yeah. So, Rach, if you wanna start.
Okay. Am I on? Oh yeah. Hello. Okay. So I don't know you, but what's your name? Lauren. Okay. I'm Rachel. Nice to meet you. So I actually saw you as a runner. I saw a picture of a runner, and a runner that is. Let me reword this. You've been in strength, like a strengthening training for a long time, and the way that you run, your posture is very clear and direct. You don't sway from the road. Your yes is yes, your no is your no. And you've kept your eye on the prize the entire time. There's a strength in you that is very rare. And so I saw diamonds all over you as you run. You've reached a place that's a meadow. And when I asked Holy Spirit what that was, he said, it's your season, it's your time for rest and rejuvenation, that you're strengthening. You've reached a place where you can rest. And just that he's very proud of you. He's very proud of you.
That's so good. That's so good.
Okay. I knew you were going to come to me. What's your name?
Kimberly.
Kimberly.
We know
Oh,
each other.
yeah.
You didn't even recognize her, did you?
Oh, wow. So, kind of when I saw you, what brought me to you was the hat, right? It reminds me of my grandma. She would crochet and things like that. And she did all of those things with love. And even thinking about, a grandma usually goes through a lot of hard times in life, right? There's a lot of stuff that happens. But then they're softened, so when they become the grandparent, they're able to treat their kids and people in their lives so much differently, right? And I just see, from that grandmother point of view, of just the caring and compassion that you have for anybody that's around, the hospitality that you have that just brings people in, and you just love on people, and you love on people well. And that ministers to each of those people in a specific way. And that's a blessing that God has for you, because you're able to touch other people that somebody who's hardened is not necessarily able to touch and to speak into. But it is that the tenderness and the caring, the grandmother's hands that will hold and love and do anything for those grandkids, or basically anybody in their lives. So it's just that outpouring of love that you have for people will just make such a difference in their lives.
That's so good. Good to see you. I love that. Like something reminded her of her grandmother, and she took that information and she allowed the Lord to expound on it. You guys are so freaking awesome. Thank you for letting me throw you up here and make you do things you didn't know you were going to do. Like, it's just get comfortable being uncomfortable. That's all. It's what it's about. It's like putting on your gym gear. You don't want to be seen in it, but you're going to do it. But yeah, I love that. Like, you look in the book of Ezekiel, and Ezekiel's having like all these amazing prophetic experiences, and he'd say, I look and then I saw. We're looking with intention for an association that will spark a word. So the association, I think what we're trying to do is recognize when something's highlighted instead of just going, oh, that was just standing out to me for this reason or that reason or no reason at all. But realizing that, the Lord's very rarely going to scream at you. He has at times with me, and it's usually when I'm arguing with him. But outside of that, there's a handful, maybe a sprinkling of those times where he's like, enough. But outside of that, he's like, if you want to hear from me, lean in and listen and learn the way I'm speaking to you. So we're going to prophesy through association. So if you want to put that up there, Andrew, you can. But what we're going to do is we're going to find a partner again. And I want you to be open to any association over your partner. Like I said, person, could be in government, could be friend, could be, hey, if you want to use Lady Gaga, you can steal it. I don't care. Do you want to use Morpheus? Whatever. Share the association with your partner and then use it to unpack that word. Now, if you were to take this outside of this room and we're not playing with a recipe, but we're actually working with it, if someone is association to me, I unpack it with the Lord and I share it from that word. I don't share them the association because not everybody would be comfortable here in Lady Gaga's an association. They'd be like, offensive, and I'm not this, and I'm not that, But if you use it as a tool for you to unpack a word for somebody else, instead of brushing away what we think is coincidences, the subtleties are important in prophetic. So we're going to actually tell them the association that we get, and then allow the Lord to speak and unpack that through us. And honestly, like I said, no pressure. There's no fail here. Those of us who like to not do things until we get them right are never going to get it right. And I'm speaking to the choir. So find a partner. Let's get started. So we'll just take like one or two. We'll just do a couple testimonies. Does anybody have one that they want to give for that was super fun or exciting or cracked them up or, made you weep or how it made you feel or you were surprised you hit the target or please, I would love to hear it if you totally screwed it up. We will celebrate screw-ups more than we will celebrate. Like, I hit nothing and I tried. That is like, yes. Anybody? Testimony? All right. Rachie? Oh, Nance, Sammy wants you to come up here because he wants to put you on a camera. So if you would stand up here with Rach so everyone can see you.
Pastor Ronnie said that when he thought of me like the Nancy Drew books, he's never read them. He doesn't know anything about them.
I want to buy him a set. Oh.
But he said she's a detective, he thinks. And I said, yeah, I think so too. And that a detective is like undercover.
Yeah.
And so he said, you secretly go in and you're an undercover kind of like for the Lord. And then sometimes you correct people and they don't know you're correcting them. And they leave saying, oh, she just corrected me. And I was laughing when he said that because I think I do that sometimes. And on the way here, I was just sitting with the Lord and he said, you guys are going to have so much fun tonight. And I was like cracking up when he said that.
Aww.
So it was very fun.
So it drew something out that was in there and you didn't even recognize it within yourselves. That's super fun. Who else? Who else? I saw Bruce. You can come up here and share.
I picked Steve back there. I don't know Steve very well. But when I walked up to him, I saw a straight piece of lumber.
Oh.
Real smooth and shiny and firm. And everything I said to him, he echoed that, well, first he works with wood.
Oh, how fun.
So I got one right.
We'll celebrate it. Oh, that's fantastic. All right. So we're going to do one more activation tonight, but this one is sounds like. Which is, okay, so it's a little more stretching, all right? It's a little, because you see we're like adding a little bit of weight on the bar every time we go, but it gets less scary. I mean, I feel like starting your walk in the prophetic is like Samuel, when he is at the gym, he is at the end of the gym with all the guys who drop the weights and grunt, right? Like, and I'm down there I'll be with the machine. I'm good with the machine. I'm going to work my ankles. I'm down there with the ladies in the leggings. But no, and I've thought about going to that end, but it scares me because like you're vulnerable there. Like you look ridiculous. Like you're obvious. They're the first place people see you when they walk in the gym. So what we're doing tonight is we're getting comfortable being uncomfortable, adding a little bit of weight on the bar, stretching. We'll do some repetition. Over time, we'll do some cross training. We'll back and forth some different things. But tonight we're going to finish up our prophetic activations with a name that sounds like. So it's like prophesying with like a homophone, a word that sounds similar, the word play. God is very funny and very punny. He's loves to do like the ultimate dad jokes, right? He uses language in a really intricate way. And words are really important to him. Kind of like what we talked about with Adam and the breath and the kiss. When you go in to look at, one of the things we've talked about many times from this platform is when, what the Lord says at the cross, that word was finished. It was not it was, but it was finished. But if you walk down the streets of Israel and you say that word and you ask someone what it means, they'll say that means bride. So his last word was not just finished, but it was bride. He's calling for his bride, right? So the Lord loves the nuances of words and how they sound. In Jeremiah, we see the Lord training him. And he'll say, Jeremiah, what do you see? And then Jeremiah will look and answer. And, some of these things I've read and I thought, what the flip did that mean? How did he get that out of that? That didn't make any sense to me. So one of those examples is in Jeremiah 1:11 and 12. And it says, Yahweh spoke to me again. He said, what do you see, Jeremiah? And I replied, I see an almond branch. And he said, you've seen correctly. The Lord's applauding him. This is fantastic. Now know this, watch over my word. I will constantly watch over my word to fulfill it. And I'm like, how'd you get that from that? But if we look at the word play in the Hebrew, it's fascinating because the very word that he used that meant almond is a variation of the same word that means being watchful and wakeful. I'm not going to try and say either one of them, but you can do your own research later tonight because it's a complicated word. And the almond tree was also known as the tree that never slept. It would bloom out of season. And God is He's always careful to bring about his words to pass. He's never sleeping. Even when things look like they're dead, he can spring them to life in a moment. There's another scripture I thought about sharing with you tonight. Matthew 23. 24. He says, what blind guides, what nitpickers, that cracks me up. You will spoon out a gnat from your drink, and yet at the same time, you've gulped down a camel without realizing it. And we don't realize from our text, but in the Aramaic, the gnat and the camel, those words are one letter off, they have the same sound. So it's just a metaphor of he's trying to show him the insignificant as opposed to the impossible would kill you to try to swallow a camel, right? He's speaking to the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And the Pharisees would actually strain their drinks to make sure there was nothing unclean in it because, it was a really big deal to them that they stay clean. But yet they would load people down with the heavy burden of the law and following. So what he's doing here with the wordplay is actually a pun that we don't actually pick up on in our language. But during this activation, you're going to use somebody's name, as it sounds like, to kind of use as your springboard into your prophetic word or your activation. One word I received that was kind of interesting, because my name is Laura, is they use lariat. She said, I heard lariat, you pull things down closer, heavenly things that are just beyond someone's grasp. You pull things into grasp. I see these things feeding others. I see those others feeding nations. Go feed the nations. One of my favorites, though, was Dee's husband, Gary. We did this in an activation, and somebody actually cheated a little bit. They deviated from the instruction. Oh no, you left the recipe. Anyway, it's fine. They didn't go with Gary's first name like we asked because that's not what they heard. When Gary was walking up to them, his last name was Hayward, and they knew that. He said, as he was walking up to them, he heard wayward. And he thought, I can't say that. That's like not positive. That's not edifying. That's not encouraging. This is not what we do here. And he thought, well, I'm just going to be raw with Gary. Like, this is what I'm hearing. Like, and I heard the Lord say, but that's not you. And then he began to unpack who he was. And Gary's like weeping. And apparently that was like a nickname that kids gave him when he was young, growing up in his neighborhood. And it had left like a residue on him. It was wayward Hayward. And the Lord went, that can't stay. So, always listen to Jesus instead of me. That's good. Yeah, so we are going to partner up again. And we are going to do a name activation when you're going to do sounds like. Oh, wait, don't partner yet. Don't partner. Where's Ronnie? Did he leave the room? Ron, this is not the time to tinkle. Everybody applaud him when he comes back. Yeah. Well, he was going to demonstrate it, but I think you can do it without a demonstration. Do you want to do it, Dee? I love it. That's fantastic. She was going to demonstrate it for us, just kind of. I think y'all get it, but let's do it anyway. It's always fun to get a word.
I'm always afraid somebody's name is going to rhyme with fart, and it's going to, and it's just going to go downhill from there. So, but Shannon, I just saw you, and knowing your name is Shannon, it just reminded me of cannon. And if you think about cannons in the war, they were great. They were used a whole lot to defeat the enemy. They caused a lot of casualties. And I think it was like in World War II that was one of the things that caused the most destruction throughout the war. And it's not, if you kind of think about it, it's not like, the artillery and things that we have today, because God wants you to know it's the basic foundational things that you've learned, and it's those prayers that take down the enemy in great waves. You don't have to do fancy things. It's all of that stuff that you've learned, and you are taking down the enemy one prayer at a time.
Awesome. All right, so let's find a partner and get ready to prophesy with sounds like their name. All right, let's do a testimony. I want to hear somebody's testimony because these can be hysterical. So these can be a good time. Does anybody want to share their word that they gave or got? And don't be afraid because I'm making you stand up here like, oh, Dee, go for it. You're not afraid. And Sam's making this, not my fault. Yeah.
That's okay. It's one of my responsibilities.
What up, y'all? All right, so Rachel here is on point. Just before my wife and I got here, I was telling her something that happened at work, and I felt from the Lord to encourage my manager at work, and just because a lot's been happening in the work environment, I just felt a word to encourage my boss's boss for some reason, and step out in faith and be strong and know who lives inside of me. And so my wife was just telling me how much people listen to me and how the power of the Lord can flow through my words. And a lot of the time I really don't believe that sometimes. And when the Lord reminds me, it's just like, thank you, God. Like, you are working in me, and I'm working on that. And Rachel completely nailed that and said exactly word for word what my wife was telling me on the way here. Like, word for word.
What was the word she heard?
Oh, she was saying exactly what I just said. Like,
yeah, but like, what was the word? Like, what was the like the homonym? The sounds like you're. The sounds like part? Was there a sounds like part?
It sounds like?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It was so good that doesn't matter. I love that. That's like, no, we're not about recipe. I was just curious. Like, that's good. It's fantastic. I love it. I agree with that word.
Talking,
yeah.
and it's just not
No, it's beautiful. You moved him. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's fogging up my mind. Go ahead, you got it. Michelangelo, that's what it was.
Michelangelo.
Yes, and everything that he did, and like just the power and the things that he's done, and the things that I do and say with people and relationships and stuff. And
That's so fun though, because like you don't even remember what the heck the word was that the launching point was. So it just proves the whole point that you don't even need that. Like it's just her. It's for her, more for you. Yeah, that's beautiful. Oh, thank you for sharing that. Anybody else?
No problem.
Anybody else want to share? No? Do you want me to make like Rachel pick somebody? Because she hates it when I make her do things like that, and you'll hate it too. So, anybody? Just one more before we? No. Okay. Well, okay. All right. There we go, Lori.
Hi. Well, my name's Lori, and I was kind of scared at what somebody was going to see because with that name, it's kind of hard to think of something. But the word that she got was door, like Dory, door, and she said that she saw me like a door, like I have this ability to open up and like receive. And I was just thinking about this the other day of throughout the years of my walk, that I've always had this ability to just open myself up. Even when I was in Bible college, this guy came up to me one time and he said, you know, I watch you all the time. And I was like, you do? I was kind of like, and he's like, yeah, because you have this ability, like, to just open up and receive. And it was funny that when I was thinking about that the other day, I thought, wow, I'd really like to feel that again. And after I got the word and I sat down, I realized this whole COVID thing, that's kept us apart from everybody, that it didn't have anything to do with me, that I hadn't closed the door, although it had kind of felt like it, but there just hasn't been a lot of opportunity. So it was a blessing to me. That's awesome.
That's awesome. Well, I don't want to keep you guys too much longer tonight, but so this was just kind of like a little intro night into what we're going to do with our prophetic nights. Like we're going to go a little deeper, a little farther, a little higher, a little wider kind of stuff, And actually, Andrew, do you want to put up like the receptors slide? Dear Lord, how cold is it in here? Look at him. He's all bundled up. Everybody's got their coats on. Must be more cold than I realize. I'm 53, so I'm not cold. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's my entire house back there. They all walk around bundled up. I'm like, it's fine. It's good. No, I was just going to have him show you just a little receptors slide because I wanted to kind of unpack for you a little bit more about what we're going to do on the prophetic nights. It's going to be a lot of activations, but we're going to be really intentional about all the different ways that the Lord speaks. We didn't really talk about how you received your information from him. We didn't really isolate any particular ways you were receiving from him. But do you see it? Is it lost? It's lost in translation between all the computers. It's coming. Yeah, Rachel's found it, I think, maybe, or not. It's not a big, huge deal. We'll have it next time. But like some information we receive from the Lord, whether we recognize it or not, is internal. And some of it's external, and some of it is, supernatural. And so we're going to use just this ability to kind of unpack the 12 receptors of the way you see, whether you're seeing it internally, whether you're seeing it externally, and what we put our appreciation on, because sometimes what we see externally, we don't appreciate as much as information from the Lord as what we see internally, or vice versa, depending on what your strengths or what your weaknesses are. So we're going to take the seeing, the hearing, the knowing, And we're going to unpack those, whether they're internal or external or mystical. And we'll have a slide for it next time. And I promise, like, I'm learning slides. This is a big learning curve for Laura. Create slides. Patty's like, yay, she's creating slides. Look at her. Sat with my children, like, Mom, I learned how to do this when I'm 6. And I was like, yeah, I know. But I hope you guys got some stirring in you tonight, you know? Just some stirring up of those gifts. And just the stuff that we did tonight, you can practice with throughout the next month or the next few weeks if you're coming back to the next one. And I hope that you are, because we're going to continue to build on these every time. And it'll be super fun. But you can use these. Like, you could shoot emails to people in regard to what their name is. You can drop a line. You can speak to the guy at the counter to check out, or, whatever. And you can learn to not brush away the little associations that the Lord puts in front of you and recognize that that's actually the Holy Spirit speaking to you. And the more you look, right, the more you'll see, the more he'll expound. He never stops teaching, taking you, and leading you. So I hope you guys had fun tonight. Yes.